thank you everyone that's here. Laura Aveledo from Small Business BC, Mark Juvenars from Workabox. He's also instructor for our programs at Tam Woods and Global Startup School. Colin Weston from Startup Vancouver, who is also one of our instructors here at the Global Startup School. Elias Beyano from Export Development Canada. And we are here to bring you guys a little bit about the global world and about global strategies, just like a brief introduction before we go to Colin, and just to tell you like the order that we are going to go in these events. I'm gonna do like a short presentation with Colin Weston. After, it's going to be like a conversation between me and Colin Weston about like global strategies, some challenges, some opportunities that we have in Canada and of course in the world. After that, we are going to pass to Elias, and he's going to talk a little bit about how Export Development Canada is helping Canadians through the whole country. After, it's going to talk a little bit about important export procedures. Laura Veled, she's going to talk about the great job that they are doing at Small Business BC. And at the end, we are going to have Mark Juvenars talking about Workabox. Just to let you guys know, if you are not sharing your screen now, when I finish my presentation, I will stop to share my screen. So it's going to open space for other presenters if you are not allowed to put your presentation again. Just to tell you guys that you are at home, watching us right now, if you want to see the presentation a little bit bigger, click on the presentation twice with the left button of the mouse. Just remember that it's like a person, the presentation, and the first presentation we are going to show you guys, very short presentation. It's about global strategies. If you see, it's going to show global strategies in the presentation. You can double click on that, and you can watch the full presentation. So, as I told you, we are the Global Startup School. We are a school of entrepreneurship and innovation. We bring entrepreneurs from worldwide. We come people from Mexico, Czech Republic, many different countries, and our program is taught by real entrepreneurs, as you can see here. Mark Juvenars, Colin Weston, people that can help you guys to boost your business. Okay, this is just a summary of our introduction. Now I will pass to Colin Weston. He's going to talk a little bit about Startup Vancouver and many things that we do together in the startup ecosystem in Vancouver.
Good stuff. Well, hello everybody, and thank you, Raphael, for inviting me to be part of this panel. Now I'm on Hop, and I'm trying to click the monitor for to show up, and now I can't. So if that's the case, we'll keep on rolling here, and I'll just use my words and kind of move my hands around and just talk, which is totally fine by me. If that's the case, if someone there on the
Colin, you cannot share because there are like 9 people, and for example, if someone that's going to present at the last, for example, you, Laura, if you can stop sharing for a while, so Colin is going to be allowed to stop, because maximum number of screens are 9, and we had 9. Now we have 8 out of 9. So you can share your screen right now.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, give me a second here. Figure this out. Let me go back to my presentation here.
Click in the computer. Thank you, Laura.
And some reason my presentation in Google Slides is now no longer up there, which is very odd.
Oh.
Hold on. See if I can get that.
And then just a reminder for anyone, if you want to maximize it, you can just double click on the presentation and it'll make it bigger once we get this, once you get it shared.
Okay. That's what I see. Okay, so sorry for the technical hang up here, folks, here. There we go. Okay. Share that one there. Get it back to present.
First one, Startup Vancouver.
There we go. All right. Well, sorry that took a little bit of time there. Well, once again, Raphael, thank you for having me on here today. My name is Colin Weston. I am the community leader for Startup Vancouver, which is one of over 40 community chapters of Startup Canada across the country. And the reason we exist here, both locally and also nationally, is we are here to support and connect, just like the sign says behind me here, connect entrepreneurs to the resources, to the events, to the tools, and to the mentors, and most importantly, to each other, to have the best chance to succeed on your entrepreneurial endeavors. And with Startup Vancouver, the best way to connect with us is through social media. We are very active there on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and also on YouTube now also, and also our LinkedIn page. So we have all of our events and also all the other ones that we support, because we are about collaboration, about partnerships. What we do with Global Startup School, what we do with Small Business BC, and so many others across our innovation ecosystem. And that is what we do. So if you're an entrepreneur out there, which if you're part of this event, you most likely are, as a founder or involved in a startup or thinking about it, we are here to help support you. So please get involved and reach out to us, because that's why we're here. All right, and as I mentioned with Startup Canada, we are part of a national organization. As you can see there, we are entrepreneurs working together to build a Canada for entrepreneurs and give a voice to the over 3.5 million entrepreneurs in the country. And of the events that we do, I just want to quickly mention one that we're going to be doing as part of Vancouver Startup Week, speaking of collaborations. So our weekly live stream show that we normally have on Zoom, What Keeps You Up at Night, Entrepreneurship During Challenging Times, we are going to be hosting on Hop-In tomorrow at 12:30 for an hour. So, hey, if you're already part of the great things we're doing here on Vancouver Startup Week, please join us tomorrow for that. And you can see there with Tina that she's a senior trade commissioner with Global Affairs Canada, which ties in very nicely to the conversation that we are having here today. Other events that we do, and we're going to be having an October one coming up here. This is just to show you the speaker series events that we do on a monthly basis here to help celebrate and also support and showcase entrepreneurs and so many different segments of our life and community. And next month, this is just what we did earlier this year, but next month we're going to be celebrating clean tech entrepreneurs as we partner with Foresight for that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen there. Just wanted to quickly let you know things that we are up to here with Startup Vancouver. And with that, Raphael, I'd like to turn it back over to you, and let's start our conversation.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you very much. Laura, he stopped to share, I believe, his screen. Colin, you should stop your screen.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And Laura, now Laura can share her screen again. So we are just learning a little bit how the system works, but it's amazing when you learn everything. It's amazing. I'm really enjoying it and other events as well. So just to start here, I'm gonna speak very quickly. So we as the Global Startup School, we brought all these people here, Colin, because he does like Canadian Export Challenge, which is quite interesting event. Elias from Export Development Canada, Laura, Mark, because people here, they really are hands-on. They were going really to help entrepreneurs to make business move on, of course. And I'm gonna explain why I brought each one of them here, but I'm gonna go through a little bit on my presentation. So I'm sharing already my screen. You double click with the left button on global strategies, okay? And you can see here, now you can see export and imports in my screen, right? Great. So the global trading, it's quite important for Canada itself, because this data is from 2018, but for example, in export, we grew. It represents almost 66% of the GDP of the country, counting with exports and imports. In terms of exports, Canada exported, like last year, 2019, $729 billion, a lot of money. And most part of it was in energy, motor vehicles, and some other kind of products. Of course, the main markets for Canada, you guys know, it is the US, European Union, and China. The imports, it's a little bit more than that, so you can understand how the global world is important for the Canadian economy itself. If you see, for example, I came from Brazil, it's just 15% instead of 66% in terms of the global trade. So Canada relies a lot in the international business, and that's why this is so important for us to understand the global markets. So, of course, there are some steps for you to go for the global market. There is the planning for international marketing entry. What's going to be your choice? Which is going to be the path for you to achieve this objective? Of course, you need to implement that. And also, you need to take care with some intercultural competence that you need to have, because not everyone in the world is equal. Here in Canada, we are lucky because we have a sort of melting pot here, people from all different cultures here. But of course, if you are going to another market, you need to understand deeply how does this market works. And of course, law and ethics, that they are different in between countries. So great. Colin, you have some questions. You are muted, Colin.
Gee, amateur hour already here. There you go. Now you can hear me. So Raphael, one of the things that I really love about what you do with Global Startup School, and it's writing your name there with global, you have insights that you gather from students from across the world. I don't know how many countries or how many continents you get students that come to Canada, or right now virtually, that you're interconnected with, but you have a unique lens on how Canadian entrepreneurs and international entrepreneurs could then scale across the world. So with that, what kind of strategies can you talk about that entrepreneurs could use to scale up and go global?
Yeah, just to understand, it's quite interesting, those questions we have here, and we are a company that we have like students globally. So we have like BDMs worldwide to select the right type of students for the Global Startup School and other programs. So we have International Business Management here and Digital Marketing Program, which Mark Juvenars is one of our teachers. So we have students from everywhere. We have students here from Vietnam currently taking lessons also online because they cannot come in. So it's quite interesting, like background. And to scale up, there are different kinds of process, okay? I'm going to show you some of them, okay? And I'm going to explain very briefly, and after we can chat more about that. I'm good to drink a coffee with any of one of you guys if you read me out. But we have different marketing entry strategies. There are trading entry strategies that can be indirect exporting or direct exporting. So direct exporting, you export direct, or indirect exporting, you can use some sort of e-commerce, or you can use some sort of agent to do it for you, or a trading company. I'm going to show one slide further that's going to explain you better. In invest entry strategies, you have transfer related strategies where you're going to transfer something. It could be just acknowledgement or direct investments. Of course, transfer related strategies, you're going to talk about things like licensing. For example, Disney, when Disney is selling some toys worldwide, they are licensing their name for the toy, that the factory that produced the toy. You have franchising, for example, Subway. they use a lot of franchise. They are growing a lot in the number of stores because people are using their business model to go abroad and to have a subway in their home country, maybe in Caribbean or at the Middle East or many places. For instance, for example, I lived for part of my life in the United Arab Emirates, and I could see, for example, I was handling the global account of Yum Group, KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell, and they use this system of franchising that works pretty well. Subcontracting is more or less what Apple does. So they have different companies that produce part of their products there. You have some strategic alliance where you see, like, for example, Spotify nowadays is doing with Uber in some places. When you go inside an Uber, so it starts to put like this the sound you like, or Starbucks with Barnes and Nobles. When you go to a bookstore, you're going to see like a Starbucks, and that's our sort of the things that you don't need to have necessarily like a contract. Normally, you do a contract, but it's not totally necessary. You have foreign direct investments. Of course, you can have like a branch office in the other country. You can do like a joint venture. Of course, you're going to have part of the company. For example, two companies join together, like a percentage of the new company is going to be part of the company A, part of the company B, and they build the company C. Of course, you have greenfield and brownfield investments where you're going to do your own investments there. So you're going to open a factory, or you're going to buy a factory in that place. And you have also merger and acquisition. Just to be like a little bit more clear on that, in this type of marketing entry strategies, I'm just going to show you like what we were speaking before. So you have the home company, and you have like direct export. You have or you have the agent here doing trading, conforming foreign office. This is going to be indirect export. And of course, in the other side, you need to have a partner, someone that's going to work with you, because this is quite important to select the right people to work with you. An important one, wholesale, distributor, retailer. Of course, nowadays we are in the digital area, and you can sell your application through like Play Store or Apple Store. Okay?
Good stuff. Nice, Raphael. Thanks for that response there. I found that with one of the events that we've held with Startup Canada, and that is the Canadian Export Challenge that you touched on earlier, Raphael. So we've done it 3 years in a row now, did it virtually this year, of course, just a couple of weeks ago. And Export Development Canada is one of the partners we have in creating that. And the reason we did this is entrepreneurs, one of the biggest problems with Canadian entrepreneurs, maybe it's part of Canadian humility. We don't maybe think we're good enough to take on the rest of the world. And we're losing out on this tremendous opportunity of realizing 99.5% of the world's population is not in Canada. There's over 180 or 90 something countries outside of Canada. So this massive opportunity. But one of the challenges, Raphael, is it's just overwhelming as far as the resources. Who do I talk to, or which country do I go look at first as my best opportunity, maybe the top 3. So Raphael, perhaps you could help us out here a little bit and give us some information on where we can find some data about international markets as a starting place as an entrepreneur that wants to go global.
Yeah, like on that matter, I just selected here some websites where you can grab some information. But you have like buy and sell procurement data tenders of Canada. This is from my friend Bruno Gomez, a very good friend of mine that used to be our director here at the Global Startup School also. Hello, Bruno. In the USA, you have this data from the government. So each kind of government, you have different data. You can see from India here, you can find like a very good information from Euromonitor itself. They are going to grab data for you for many different markets. So if you want to see how is the beer market in Africa, so how is the beer market in the US, you are going to find out lots of good information outside, and you can compare, you can go on, and you can understand the huge opportunity you have with more than 7 billion people in the world itself.
Nice, nice. I just have one more question for you here, and this kind of ties in, kind of expands upon what you had just mentioned there as far as the challenges that face entrepreneurs. I know that myself, when I put on my other hat as an entrepreneur, with our market mostly in the US, and then it'll be in Asia and also in Europe with what we're doing in the sport technology, sport experience space. And I had the great fortunate opportunity to have people that I met through the Trade Commissioner Service reach out and help me to get into the Los Angeles market. So that was just a great opportunity as one of the kind of the challenges that we face. So I want to ask you this as a final question here, Raphael. So what are the main challenges you're finding that entrepreneurs are facing or will face, especially during a global pandemic, when dealing with global markets?
So dealing with global markets, it's quite hard. Sometimes people think that it's just copy and paste, but it's not that. Okay, that's why I brought here people with different experience to help you entrepreneurs out with that. But like one main challenge that normally like people face or companies face are the intercultural competence, like the customer preference. Okay, for example, if you're selling foods, like you need to take care because the taste is different. For example, people in Asia, they love like spicy food. For example, where I come from, Brazil, not too much people. So you need to take care about that. And McDonald's, like Subway, they always do some kind of work like that, checking different kinds of products that they need to do for different markets. Here you can see some kinds of examples that they use like in China or in India. I'm gonna put like a video just for 1 minute, this video, but just to show you guys how the market works with those kinds of markets. This video is not gonna have like sound, but there is no problem, and that's exactly what I want. I just want you guys to start to see like these very important things that McDonald's is doing all around the world. Okay. So you can double click in the video and you can see how McDonald's is doing in different countries. With different kinds of products for different countries.
And Raphael, I know that Starbucks has a similar approach also, that they do not have the same product offerings as in China that they do in North America, that they certainly may have not only cultural sensitivities, but also just to align themselves to the preferences and the likes and dislikes of that culture.
Exactly. They need to do that, otherwise they're going to be out of the market, because it's what people want. They just cannot come like and copy and paste.
And I'm assuming, so, Raphael, you can say that it expands beyond just the product offering too, that it's also about the experiential offering that has to be culturally aligned also, yes? Exactly,
exactly. So that's just like a small video. That is just a small video that I shared with you to show the difference we have all around the world, and that we need to care about that. Of course, the way you do compliments worldwide is different, like the way people behave, the religion, and the main thing is that, and I believe Canadians have a lot of this, it's to respect everyone and to work together. So that's my part. Thank you very much. Now I just want to hand to my colleague Elias of EDC to explain you guys how EDC is helping Canada to go abroad.
Hi guys, good to meet you all virtually. So again, my name is Elias Bano. I've been with EDC now for close to 8 years. And I just wanted to have a quick presentation to kind of show how EDC will help companies that are exporting. So before I get started on the presentation, something that Rafael mentioned earlier, I wanted to make a point of explaining that from our perspective as well, which is direct and indirect exporters. And so for us at EDC, we're a crown corporation, and so we have a mandate to support exports. But we have two types of companies that we can help. Either a direct exporter, so a company that's selling a product or a service to a different market, or an indirect exporter. And so an indirect exporter, what that means from our perspective is a company that is part of the supply chain for an eventual export. So for example, companies that are selling, raw material to I don't know, the lumber industry, for example, and then they're exporting. Well, if there's a direct link between the product you're providing here in Canada that's leading to an export, you can also qualify for EDC support from our mandate perspective. Okay, so two things is a direct exporter, indirect exporter, and secondly, an exporter is not only a company that's selling a physical product to a new market, but even companies that are providing services or software or whatever it is. As long as you're invoicing a company in a foreign market, we can look at supporting. So we'll dive right into it. At a high level, this is what EDC solutions are. Four sort of main pillars. We have our insurance offering, which is really focused around accounts receivable insurance. And so Colin mentioned that, a lot of companies, the stages of it is they'll do business here domestically, then they'll go into the US, and then they'll go outside of the US. That's sort of the sequence that most companies follow. But we've noticed now that actually with all the instability in the US, that a lot of companies have actually diversified and started looking into other markets as their first foreign market, which is great. But before doing that, obviously you want to lower your risk of non-payment, right? So in trade finance, most times you're not going to receive money up front from a client. They're going to ask for, what's called open terms. So 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is. So you ship the product at a wait to get paid. Well, if a buyer in that foreign market doesn't pay you, it's very expensive for you to go chase after that client for payment in a foreign market. So what EDC does is we would qualify those buyers for you ahead of time, and we can provide what's called the accounts receivable insurance to cover you up to 90% of that loss. So just a quick example of that is if you sold a product for $100,000 to a foreign buyer and they went bankrupt and now you're out $100,000 in receivables, EDC can cover up to $90,000 of that loss. And the reason I say up to $90,000 is because we set a limit per buyer, which is great also for a smaller company that doesn't have their own accounting department or their own credit management department. We essentially become that for your company at an early stage, where you come to us and say, we're selling to the X company, here's who they are, here's how much we're selling to them, do you qualify them for the insurance? And if we do, that's great. If we don't, then maybe you reconsider selling to them on open terms, maybe look to see if you can get payment up front just to mitigate your own risk. So quickly, just on the insurance as well, is that you don't have to insure your entire book of business. So if you have a bunch of clients, you have 100 clients, and for a lot of them, it's really minor transactions, and you don't need to insure all of them. But all of a sudden, you get a big order. We can look to insure just one buyer or your entire book of business. There's a lot of flexibility there. Actually, up to 500,000 US. If it's for just one buyer, you can do that online and get qualified within either immediately if we already have that client on file, or 24 to 48 hours for us to do the background check on the buyers for you. So at a high level, that's what the insurance is. It covers you to make sure that you get paid. It's not for freight insurance. If you're shipping from one country to another and something happens on the boat or whatever, that's not covered under this insurance. It's for the risk that your buyer does not pay you. Our financing solutions are in partnership with the Canadian financial institutions. We don't do a ton of direct lending ourselves, but rather when you approach your bank, if you're asking for a $500,000 operating line, for example, and they say, look, we're happy to help you here, but we can't do 500,000. You just don't qualify for that from our perspective. The security package is not enough. What EDC will do is we come in and we provide a guarantee to the bank to help them give you access to those funds. So a lot of time I compare that to, for those of you who have mortgages, for CMHC, providing a guarantee to the bank on your mortgage, right? So you're not essentially dealing directly with us for the lending, but you're going through your bank and we're backstopping that. So at an early stage, obviously, a lot of you will know it's challenging to get an operating line or a term loan or whatever from the bank. And with us, we do need their participation, but it may come a little faster if EDC is involved because we give them that extra comfort. So financing, the one thing, like I said, is operating lines and term loans, traditional financing where we support. But the other thing that falls under financing is what's called standby letters of credit. So in trade finance, a lot of times companies will ask for a standby letter of credit. So a quick example of that is you land a contract with a company and it's for $1 million. And you say to them, look, I need 40% down to cover my cost. They say, okay, well, I'll give you 40% down, but I need some sort of guarantee to call on if ever you don't deliver. And so you will turn around and issue them a standby letter of credit. So again, in order to do that, the bank will carve that out. They will freeze that money, sort of like a certified check, to issue that to your buyer and give them the comfort. Well, we will come in and help the bank release that money so you can use it. Again, I know there's a lot of moving parts here, but basically just saying that if you come across a client that's looking for a standby letter of credit to make sure that you deliver on whatever it is that you're providing, it's an opportunity for you to reach out to us to see if we can help your bank issue that on your behalf. More recently, we've come up with our knowledge solutions. So at an early stage as well, if you're looking to enter a new market and you don't know where to start, you can send us an email to exporthelp@edc.ca, and basically any high-level questions that you may have, right? So we're not going to provide specific legal advice, IP legal stuff, especially it's something that comes across a lot. We can't offer that kind of advice because it's not our expertise. But we will put a one-pager together to discuss, what's the size of the market there? What are some of the regulations you may want to consider before entering that market? Who are some of the partners that we work with in that market? So on and so forth, which will basically just help you get started. But if you do have a specific question, obviously, the more specific you are, the more we can help with that. And that's a free product, right? So for the moment, we're not charging for anything for knowledge. Our goal is really to help you enter those markets. So one, obviously the insurance will help you with the peace of mind that you'll get paid if we qualify that buyer, but also on the knowledge side, it'll help you feel more confident in entering these markets. And lastly, would be our connections, which is through our global trade team. So their focus really is to get to know our Canadian capabilities. So if you are signed up with EDC, or even if you just register with us, you can put what your capabilities are, right? So say you're manufacturing X product. Well, when EDC provides financing to foreign buyers, we do it in order for them to come back and buy from Canadian supply chain. So we have a database of companies that we look to say, hey, there could be a fit here, and we will make the introduction to those large buyers. So as long as you basically are registered with us, you give us a little bit of background. It's a questionnaire that has about 18 questions or so to really understand your company a little bit more. And when we find the right fit, we're happy to make those introductions. Previously, it was through trade missions. Either we take a group of the companies to come with us to an event to meet these buyers, or vice versa, the buyers coming to Canada and we have the companies join to connect with those buyers as well. So it's a great way to get access to a buyer that you otherwise potentially wouldn't have been able to get in contact with the right person. So, you know, at a high level, I know it's almost to 15 minutes. I won't go into too much more detail, but that's basically it from EDC side. I don't know if there's any questions. All right, I think we're good, Rafael.
Elias, I had one question for you. I hear this from entrepreneurs all the time, and they get a little, I wouldn't say frustrated, but a little confused of understanding what stage do they need to be at. I know BDC has the same thing, but with EDC, what stage do they need to be at to really kind of take advantage of and utilize all the things that you offer? Because some of them come in too early, then get frustrated and think, well, I thought you were there for me, but I'm not. So just as far as kind of that awareness for entrepreneurs.
Sure.
So maybe you can touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question, Colin. We actually get that question a lot. You know, for most solutions here, except for financing, we can help you right off the bat. Okay, so what I mean by that is when we're looking at the insurance, the accounts receivable insurance, even if it's your first time selling, we're looking at whether or not your buyer has the financial capabilities to pay you, not what is history. So even right off the bat, if you make a sale to a foreign buyer, you can look to insure against that accounts receivable, right? So pricing will vary based on the volume that you're insuring. It'll which market you're in. You know, we can usually insure in most markets except for sanctioned countries like Russia and Iran and so on. But you know, to the U.S., you're likely to qualify, and from a country standpoint, it just then becomes whether or not the buyer qualifies. Obviously, knowledge is something we can help right at the front end with any questions, and our connections program. That, you know, that honestly, you'd probably have to be a bit further down and have some sort of unique capabilities, and that EDC is comfortable in saying that you can deliver on whatever this buyer is looking for. But you know, yeah, financing. Most banks ask for 2 years of financials, but you know, if it's less than 2 years of financials, you can still approach your bank and see if we can get involved with that.
So if I can, so it sounds like with your knowledge solutions, that entrepreneurs that are looking to go international or global in, let's say, 6 months, 12 months, or whatever that timeline could be, they don't need to wait until they are already have that contract signed. They can actually have conversations with you, perhaps to learn best practices just through your knowledge piece.
Absolutely, yeah. So our export help team is a sort of a general service where you can send an email to them with a bunch of questions, and then they'll get back to you with email overview. But if you had more specific questions, you can call our team, or directly, you'll have my contact as part of this presentation. Feel free to give me a call, and we can brainstorm around what are the things you may want to consider, especially around the accounts receivable insurance when you are looking to enter a new market for the first time.
That's great. Good stuff. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. So now we are going to hand to Laura Aveledo, just to tell you guys that you can put questions here in the chat. And of course, we are going to answer all the questions at the end of the section. Don't worry, keep going. Put the questions. If they can answer right away, they are going to answer. But we are going to have like 20 minutes to answer all those questions at the end of the section. And we are going to answer those questions in the order you are putting in the system. I just ask you guys kindly to put the name of the person you are doing the question, because that's going to help us out at the end of the section. So thank you very much, Laura. Please, I'm pleased with you here talking about what Small Business BC is doing for the entrepreneurs in import and export.
Well, thank you so much, Rafael, first of all, for having us, for inviting me here today. It's a pleasure to share this panel with a lot of experts. And I wanted to share a little bit about what we do at Small Business BC and how we help your clients. So the first thing, we at Small Business BC, we are the place in the province for small business owners. So if you're starting your business, whatever you're doing, we are here to support you. Talking about international trade, we offer import and exporting consultations. So if any of the businesses are starting, you can come to us. And one of the things that we do is we can provide one-on-one consultations. We also have webinars. For example, we just did one webinar about what are the importing regulations to Canada. I hope everybody can see my presentation. If you are, I can share, keep on sharing with you. I don't know, can you see? Okay, I suppose you can see it.
Hi, we can see, but do you know how to put in the presentation mode?
Yes, no, because I don't have it that way. So
No, it's okay. We can see. We can see
okay,
here.
So you see now flow of goods. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll continue with that. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you, we're talking first today about exporting. And if you think about it, apart from thinking which product you you're going to be exporting, how are you going to be doing that? One of the things that everybody who's thinking about importing has to think about is the different stages that your product is going to go through until it gets into your client, your buyer, or that person who's going to buy the product from. So if you are the supplier, you have to think that in some situations, some government agencies have to allow the product to leave Canada. Then your product will have an issue because you have to find ways of taking your product to another country. It will be shipping, it will be trucking. How are you going to be doing that? Then you need the help of custom brokers because you need to declare your product once it's arrives in the country. You need to fill forms. You need certain regulations. Then that product has to be declared in that as soon as you arrive in that country. It has to clear customs. And then is when that product will eventually get into your importer, the distributor, or whoever is going to buy your product. When you are exporting, there are many information and many considerations you have business owners have to have. Number one, in order to export any product, you need to do it commercially. You need to have a business, and you need to have a business number. Once you have that, you still need to have what is called an import-export account. And that is something you get very simple once you have your business registered. And that is something very simple. We have to think about what are the different agencies that we have in Canada that might regulate products leaving Canada. If those products are allowed to leave Canada without any problem, like food or medication, or if those products need some kind of special permit to leave the country. One of the things that a lot of people get confused, and here I'm talking about a lot of the details that we see from our client. What is the country of origin of the product? If the product was manufactured here in Canada, the country of origin is Canada. But it could be that you import a product from, let's say, from India, and then you bring that product to Canada, and then you're exporting it to the United States. Well, that product is from India, it's not Canadian. The other things we have to look at when we're exporting a product is all the compliance. It's very complicated to take some products to other countries because there are regulations. We're talking about standards. We're talking about laws. We're talking about a lot of information that covers their own products that might be very different from what we have here in Canada. One of the things we have to think about is we need to declare that that product is leaving Canada. There are, the government is interested in knowing which products leave the country. So in some situations, you have to even know how your product is classified, and those are called HS codes, which are needed to be even you need to fill a form or an export declaration before your product leaves Canada. So if you're having a product going somewhere else, you have to declare that that product is leaving Canada. The other thing you have to think about, for example, apart from everything you've been thinking about if you're exporting a product, is how is that product going to reach the destination in the most efficient and cost-effective way? Is it a ship? Is it a truck? Is it an airplane? Those are things you need to consider before you're even thinking of product, because there are insurance, there are costs, there are even the ownership and the title of the goods are very, very important considerations. A very, very interesting point that all entrepreneurs have to think about is that the brand made in Canada is extremely well respected all over the world. So is there a value that if you have a product that it's made in Canada, you can't just use that made in Canada or product of Canada, just very simple. No, you really need to, there are some regulations in terms of the term made in Canada or product of Canada. You also have to think about all the exporting requirements. How do you clear customs? Really, who is the importer? What is the duty that that product is going to be paying once it arrives in the other country? You need to have commercial invoices. There are so many things you have to consider. So, for example, if we are exporting a product to the US, I am using an example because it's a logical market with a lot of our clients who are exporting. They think they take the US as their first logical market because it's close to us. The language is the same. Regulations for most products are very similar. So it's very easy to start that way if you're starting small to enter the United States when you're starting to export. Here I have an example, and this is what it's called the harmonized sales code. You just have to know that products all over the world are classified by number. Imagine, if not, me trying to describe to someone in another country that have a different language, trying to describe that product in a form to clear customs. So there's an international agreement for defining the product, and depending on the product and its origin, it will be the duties that your product has to pay once it arrives, for example, in this case, in the United States. And in this example I have here, I hope you can all see it, we're talking about women's dresses, and depending on the material it is made, and depending if it's for women and girls, and here we have an example of a wool dress. You can see that what are the codes, and if you can see the two rows at the end of the page, you can see something called general, or you can see something called special. And that talks about the duties that your product will be paying once it arrives in the United States. One of the advantages of exporting Canadian products, of course, it is that we have agreements with the United States. But even more than that, once you're exporting that dress to the United States, you have to think about what I mentioned before, the labeling requirements. When you're looking at a label, we all know here in Canada, when we buy a product, that we have to identify the size of the product, the material, the country of origin, the ways of caring for the product, and we also see numbers. And those numbers in the United States, for example, it's called RN, and it's a way followed by 5 numbers. That is a way to identify the importing company, a name, contact information, if there are any issues with the product. You also, once you know your labeling information, for example, for that dress, you need to fill a form getting the product into the United States. That's why we always recommend our clients to have custom brokers to help them do all that, because filling a lot of forms, it is complicated, it is overwhelming, and there are a lot of companies that can help you do that. Once you're taking your product to the United States, a word of caution: who is the importer in the United States? It can't be you, or it can't be your business. So you always have to think about, what are you doing? Another a very interesting topic that I get from a lot of my clients, they tell me, well, I'm going to the United States. I have a friend who has a store there. We're going to do a pop-up. Well, no, if you are taking products to the United States, you can't sell those products in the United States. You can take orders, but no Canadian business is allowed to take a product into the United States and sell it, because it is only allowed for American companies. So there are many, many regulations that are beneficial. That's why we offer consultations to our clients to walk exporters through this process, that apart from all the things that you're having to do that were mentioned by everybody else, there are a lot of steps that you have to consider when you are exporting. We are talking about the new Incoterms, and for people who want to know about Incoterms, it talks about who is responsible for the product in all its way through leaving, let's say, the manufacturing here in Vancouver, taking it in a truck all the way to the border, declaring exports in Canada if it needs to, going into a ship or into the truck, getting into the border, into the next country, declaring that it's entered a new country, and then being trucked or anything else into your client's offices or warehouse. And you have to take a lot of considerations, who's in charge of doing what. Now, importing into Canada, it's a little bit of the same interesting story. We have to think that the Canadian government wants to make sure that everything that enters to Canada is safe for us to consume, to wear, and to have around us. So we're thinking about an exporter, and let's say we're having an exporter of chocolate from South America. Well, that product or that exporter has to using a freight forwarder, bring that product all the way to the border here in Vancouver, where a custom broker is going to help that company clear customs. Now, when we're importing a product in Canada, we're having the Canadian government agencies having a lot of regulations for importing these products into Canada. So if we're importing food, well, you have to declare a lot of information importing that food, because the Canadian Border Services Agency, who's at the border checking that for us, is going to be checking all the regulations, and if you are complying in the way you're describing your product in order to pay the right duties. So here we're talking again that if you are importing a product that you're going to be selling commercially, you also need to have your business, your account number, and you need an import-export account. It is very important to know the country of origin and an invoice. Why do we have a country of origin? Because in some situations, Canada has lots of trade agreements that make products from certain countries beneficial, because we will be talking about duties. Again, if I'm bringing a product from South America, is it the best way to bring it by ship, or is it by truck, or do I need to fly that product? Which way am I going to be bringing my product that is beneficial and efficient for me to do that? If we're thinking about that, we have to think about all the compliances that we have. And here we're talking about how do I label a food product? So if I'm bringing chocolate bars into Canada, how do I am regulated by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So what does it say? Do I need to have, remember, if we're labeling food, it has to be in English and French, and it has to have the ingredients. And I need to have license to be able to manage the import this product. I also need, and I have to have that label when my product gets into the border. I also need to declare that the product is coming in and that the product is classified, and we need to know the duties. I just had a situation where I had a client that was bringing some products from China, it was apparel. And that person, when she was doing her business and thinking about the pricing, one of the things that my client didn't take into account was the duties that my client had to pay. Her duties were 18%. So if you're thinking about bringing a product, importing a product into Canada, make sure that you know the duties, you know the GST, you are very clear where the product is manufactured before you're coming in, before the product is coming in, because you need to know conversion rates, you need to have an invoice, and it's very important to do your bookkeeping. There are many agencies here, and here's a show for me to, it'll show you a little bit, and it's not for the purpose of scaring anybody. There are many agencies that regulate the different products, so make sure that you recognize that. A lot of my clients, for example, bring organic products, but we have to think about labeling, clothing, about the languages, about using the organic logos, invoices, and who's your supplier. Talking about the trade agreements, Canada has tons of trade agreements. So make sure that you really, before going into really importing or exporting your products, that you really understand all the requirements that you need, because we have tons of requirements. It's complicated as well. And it's not only identifying where you're going to go, which type of products you're going to be having. It's also very important to identify what are the requirements to either export a product to another country, and all what you have to do, all the little steps on the process and the legal aspect of the business. Also be sure to make sure when you're importing, which a lot of my clients do, what are the requirements? What are the costs? There are many, many costs. And there's a lot of people who come to us and they tell me, my products are arriving next week. And I thought, no, you can't do that. You need to have your information ready. You can't just run and do it. Get that information. We're here to help you. If you need anything, thank you very much. I am in my 15 minutes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great, Laura. Thank you very much for your speech. I believe people can grab a lot of information with you in the alliance also. It's feasible, but it needs a little bit of work, of course, as everything in the entrepreneurship life.
Our clients
So-
find out, get information before doing anything. So that's what we tell them.
Yeah. So we have two questions here that we are going to answer those questions just after Mark Juvenars. We have a question from Miriam, a question from Ivan. So everyone, you are good to ask more questions. Like Marcus is gonna ask like a questions. After we are going to share our contacts at the end of the section. Just wait until the end and you're going to get all the answers you want and all our contacts, LinkedIn, everything you want, okay? So now we are going to go through like with Mark Juvenars. So he has an interesting startup, and I know that for you guys that are in the startup world, that's what he wants, like real examples, like ideas. So he's just launching a company and he's bringing products from China. Unfortunately, because of this company, he's leaving Talmud, but for sure he's gonna come back for some speeches and lectures. He's always our guest here and our friend. So Mark Juvenars, can you talk a little bit more about the work you are doing with Workabox, what this company is about, how you developed your company's, your products in China, how you are bringing that products here to share with other entrepreneurs, and I believe that can help you guys in everything. Just to remember, you guys, any questions, please put here in the chat, and we are going to be good to answer all of those at the end of this section. Kindly just put your name at the end of the question and for who you want to answer your questions. Please, Mark.
All right. Thank you very much, Raphael.
You are muted, Mark.
I'm muted. Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, we can hear
okay.
you, Mark.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Raphael.
We can't hear you, Mark.
Is Raphael the only one who cannot hear me?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Colin, can
I
you hear?
can.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. Well, let's carry on. Thank you very much, Raphael. Thank you to my co-presenters. Looking many of you up as we explore Orcabox. Jumping right in, tonight I'm going to be talking to you about our journey in sourcing from China. Also going to talk about the future, where we intend to go with our brand. Because I have an audience, I'm going to make the most of it. So kind of our origin story, and why I want to talk about our origin is it's because it's important to kind of articulate why we ultimately sourced from China. So essentially, Chris, my co-founder there, he's pictured on the right wearing the Orcabox hat. He was looking for a rooftop cargo box, also known as a cargo carrier, a rooftop box, a roof box, or the thingy that goes on the roof of the car. Ultimately, in his journey, he discovered that it was exceptionally difficult to find and source one. It's essentially a giant plastic box that goes on top of a vehicle. You have to go to a retail center. They're quite expensive. They're difficult to mount. They're awkward. And he's like, there's got to be a better way to do this, which ultimately led us to create the Orcabox brand, to find a better way both to manufacture and ultimately to distribute Orcabox. So Orcabox Core is our very first product, and we built it for us. It's a selfish product. It's for us and also people like us. So people that like adventure and to get outside and like to do it with family and friends. So the launch of Orcabox, there was a few core components, and timing was really essential for us to get it right. And well, timing, in an entrepreneurial sense, timing is a little bit more flexible than it might be in other contexts. So I'm going to say timing was important, but also it was really just acknowledging that we had to be working on multiple aspects of our business, including manufacturing and sourcing simultaneously. And ultimately, this is a little bit about what our supply chain looked like. So we looked locally for our initial product development and prototyping, knowing that there would be a considerable cost to develop the product here and also to prototype it. And manufacturing was almost out of the question from the beginning, and we knew that. It just was too cost restrictive. So ultimately, we started our product development here in Vancouver, working with local designers and very quickly started to outsource the design of our OrcaBox core products outside of the country, just to places where we could get a design that would be ready for manufacturing, that we could very easily then ship to a manufacturer and get it built. So that quickly then led us from design and conceptualization to identifying a supplier. Our supplier journey, it started on, surprise, Alibaba. So that's where we first started looking to source a manufacturer. We ultimately hired an intern for the summer from UBC. She had worked at BMW in China prior to joining the program at her program at UBC. So we had a wealth of knowledge in terms of the distribution network and the supplier network within China through her lens, and ultimately then translating that to getting our product here into Canada. So fast forward about a 3-month window of supplier analysis. We're on our boat. We ordered our first prototype. It will arrive here on October 6th. So we're really excited about that. And that really then speaks to our next stage, which will be growth. The wrench in all of this, as many of you have experienced in your own worlds, I'm sure, coronavirus ultimately facilitated us taking a different approach than what we normally would have. Ideally, we would have went to speak with manufacturers in China. Ultimately, that was not going to happen this year. So we had a dilemma. We could either order one-off units and evaluate these one-off units as they came, but to order one unit is restrictively expensive. So ultimately what we did was we narrowed down to about 5 suppliers. With that list of 5 suppliers, we asked them to take us on video tours of their factory. We asked for detailed photos and videos of the products that they were developing already. And ultimately, that was the way that we vetted our suppliers. We created this slick little spreadsheet, pretty fancy right there. And here's kind of an example of some of the photos and some of the content that we were expecting our suppliers to deliver before we would ultimately enter into a contract with them. It wasn't just about the product itself, it was about the entire experience. With OrcaBox, we really want to build a brand that's founded in providing exceptional customer support and customer experience. And that starts not just with the product, but everything that's involved with the product, including the packaging, including how this device gets mounted to a vehicle, including fitment, because it's going to fit differently on different vehicles. Ultimately, we created a criteria that we used then to evaluate the suppliers, and ultimately then ended up selecting the one that we felt was the best fit for what we want to accomplish with our brand. Adding a little bit of complexity to this, our original design idea, which is a collapsible rooftop cargo carrier, it's in the works, we were not going to be able to do for our first run. We decided to understand the supply chain, the supply chain that we were operating in, amplified with COVID right now, first. And then we are going to design the product that we ultimately envision as more core to our brand. But for now, we've got a really slick product and we're really happy with where we're at. And we're going to be able to figure out the supply chain by sourcing this product right now. So we placed our first order approximately 2.5 weeks ago. We ordered 1 unit. So we bit the bullet. We ponied up the money for an expensive one-off, ultimately from our top supplier, because in this day and age, it just didn't make sense for us to go and visit China at the moment. So we're really excited about it. And part of this whole experience, so we got our product dropped off at a port by we contacted a local shipping company. They took it to the port. They did all the paperwork for us at the port in China. They threw it on the boat for us. If you go, that bit.ly link is in fact live, and you can track our boat. It's just off the coast of China right now, making its way over to Vancouver. It's about there. So this brings us then to our future. So right now, as it stands, we are figuring out the supply chain in a new setting. With the global pandemic happening right now, we know that this is a challenging time to be importing new products into Canada. Apple, Tim Cook, the master of supply chain, had to delay the launch of iPhones this year. So that just speaks to the complexity of the environment that we're operating in right now. But expanding on that, there's a lot of opportunity, and we feel in the outdoor space, facilitating people getting outside, socially distant vacations to mountains and beaches is going to be where it's at in the future. So we feel that although there's some complexity to the system now and a little bit more risk than there would be in other contexts, we feel like the reward will be worth it. So that brings me to my ask for today. We do have a landing page up and running, and we are coming soon. So if you want to jump on orcabox.com and give us your email address, we will not barrage you with emails, but we will send you a slick discount code when we do launch live here in Vancouver. Winter is coming. Stole that from Game of Thrones because after the last season, I don't think they can use that anymore. They don't have the right to use winter is coming anymore because it was so bad. But OrcaBox is coming, so that's exciting. In winter, we will be accepting pre-orders for our first full production run of OrcaBox. A little bit of background there. It's about $5,000 or $6,000 Canadian to ship a container from China to Canada. Import, export fees we're going to figure out along the way. Small business, we're going to be looking at you there, I think, for some more information. But ultimately, we're going to be doing a production run of about 100 units for a full shipping container, and those will be arriving here in winter. So pre-orders are coming soon. So with that, thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. I'm going to turn it back over to the group and answer your questions there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you. Very interesting presentation. You as a digital marketer, it's always more interesting, like the presentation itself.
Yeah, thanks, Raphael.
So guys, we have a couple of questions here. People, you can still put your questions here. It's exactly 5:40 p.m. So we are exactly on time. Things are running pretty good. So now you have 20 minutes to answer any kind of questions that you guys in the audience you have. So please don't wait to answer these questions like in the email afterwards, because maybe we are going to be busy with something. I'm not saying that you cannot email us. Of course you can, and we are going to share all the contacts. But if you can ask it right now, that's great. So the first question here that I have, it is from Ivan Maloney. Okay, he's asking, I just need to see here because I don't know for who is asking. But Ivan, if you are here, you can complement your information, but I'm gonna read for everyone. Does this apply to virtual goods that are sold off the back of infrastructure, where I am worried about accounts defaulting in mass, as I need to reach a threshold to sustain it? Think of how to handle this, be it in insurance or in sales or something else. So I believe this question was for Elias or for Laura.
Hey, Raphael, thanks. So I think it's for me, but I'm not sure I understood the question. So do you mind just rereading one part of it, what the challenge is, the concern?
Yeah, can you see the chat? The chat, maybe you can.
No, I can't.
Oh, you can't? Okay.
I can just see what's pinned.
Does this apply to virtual goods that are sold
Virtual
off
goods,
the
okay.
back of infrastructure, where I am worried about accounts defaulting in mass, as I need to reach a threshold to sustain it? Think of how to handle this, be it in insurance or in sales or something else. So I believe he's talking about the difference between goods or virtual goods.
Okay, so I'll take a stab at it, and Laura, I don't know if you want to add something afterwards, but So again, for us, it doesn't matter if it's a tangible good or if it's a virtual good or a software, right? So virtual goods can be insured as long as we understand who the buyer is and what it is, what the invoice amount is, what are the terms on it, and so on and so forth. So I'll give you an example. Some companies are, software companies, right? And they have the monthly subscriptions. Well, in a case where the structure of their contracts is such that the buyer is paying in the first of the month to access the software for that month, well, there isn't anything there to insure, right? Because the client is prepaying for that month. But in cases where companies are paying at the end of the month, they've already used it, there's technically a receivable for us to insure. So, or if, for example, you sell a product online to someone and it's to give them access to your software platform, and you let them use it in September, but they have to pay you by November, then there's a receivable for us to insure. So regardless of the product or the service that you're buying, we're really not looking at that. We're looking at that to understand your business, but the most important component is what is the receivable and what are the terms of that contract.
Great, Alex. Laura,
well, I think one of the things that you have to think, if you are exporting to countries like the United States, we don't, at Small Business BC, we will not be able to help you because we only do product. But the new CUSMA, which is the agreement between the United States, Mexico, and Canada, has included an area, a section for everything that is called digital goods, all the programs and platforms. So there might be some way that you might get protection for products, the same legal protections for products that are coming from Canada to in the United States or in Mexico for that kind of product. I'm not sure if that would be one way of helping, but I think one way of helping is having your business and making sure and understanding the trade agreement, where you can find out if there's enough protection for you in a country like the United States that can help for protection, because it will be considered like a local company if it's going to be in the United States. That will be, and it will be maybe a good idea to start thinking about going into countries where you might have some kind of protection and benefits for your business.
Great, Laura. Great, Elias. Second question, Miriam. We are developing a platform to help exporters and importers better managing all the documents and tracking the process in real time using distributed ledger technology, blockchain. We will start a project in 2 weeks. When is a good time to connect with EDC and Small Business BC?
Laura, you want to go ahead?
Well, you connect with Small Business, start having a good business, and before you start doing anything, in the sense that if it's a platform, the reality, to be honest, we will not be able to help you in that, but we can go with you in a consultation over the whole processes and what to look. I also think one of the things that might be more important for you to do is like having a business plan, and more something that we do help with consultations and things like that. So it will not be necessarily the whole import-export service, but it will also include more about business planning for your business. And of course, because we do both international trade, that might be a great way to cover everything in one of your business. And of course, knowing about the trade agreements with Canada, I think that Canada has is extremely important. Thank you.
Great, Laura.
Also, so from our point, I'm not sure kind of what you would be looking for in terms of support, but I'm happy to have the conversation to help, to see if there is something we can do to help. But it's really not about when to reach out. It's about what is it that you're looking for, and then we can figure that out together. I guess one important line is that if your clients are consumers, we can't insure that, right? It has to be another business. It has to be a B2B sale. For example, if you're selling, something online through Amazon, for example, to a consumer, that's not something that EDC can insure, right? But if your clients are business clients and you're giving them terms, that's when we can help.
Great, guys. So we still have 13 minutes left. So we have 2 questions. If you have more questions, please do it, because I believe when it comes at 6 p.m., I believe the chat's gonna end. I don't know, but I'm gonna stay here for a while if someone wants to chat with me. Okay, Colin, you wanna do the next question from Miriam?
Well,
can you see that? Miriam and after Jairo.
I'm looking for more questions, but hey, I have a question for Mark, because I always love to hear stories, and not only of success, but of cautionary tales, or perhaps some missteps or failures. It was part of this very complicated journey that you are on, Mark. Could you maybe rewind the tape and mention one or two things that, oh gosh, I wish we knew that back then, or we should have done this way, or I wish I knew of the Lauras and the Eliases of the world beforehand? Is there something that you can perhaps put out there that other entrepreneurs that are watching here today won't step on the landmines that perhaps you have stepped on over time?
Yeah, Colin, we did not make any mistakes at all on our
Amazing. You are unique, sir. And a liar too, by the way.
Yes. No, good question. So ultimately, we this idea, it originated almost 3 years ago now. So for us, it started as a project that was off the side of our desks, and without much focus, that's always something then that doesn't help to drive an idea forward. So when we did start to finally get serious about the idea, and we devoted some time to it, our immediate instinct was not only that we needed to source a product, but really we were embedded in design. We're like, we've got to figure out design. So we spent almost 8 months vetting some of the top tier design firms from around North America to ultimately create this product that we had envisioned. And while we still feel like it was valuable in our journey, it ultimately did drive us toward figuring out what was the biggest challenge for my business partner and I. Chris and I, we don't know. We don't know how to import products from another country. It's not our skill set. So that was something that we should have prioritized as a learning discovery from the beginning. Ultimately, we went down the design path because that's fun and sexy. And after finding out that it would cost in the ballpark of $250,000 to $500,000 to execute a design that doesn't even cover manufacturing or getting it shipped, for us, that wasn't necessarily something that we wanted to invest in without this big black hole of actually getting a product from another country to Canada, to North America to sell. So I think that was our, a prioritization of time in acknowledging where we had weaknesses would have alleviated a lot of the burdens and accelerated the timeline to get products here, which ultimately is our goal. And that's, I think one of the key learnings was just kind of that allocation and prioritization of what's really important.
Yeah, that's such a great insight. Myself also coming from the design thinking side of things as an architect in my previous life, that you get focused on the areas that's your comfort zone, right? Rather than those things, as you mentioned, that will this actually work as a business, and stepping outside of that and reaching out. That's such an important thing, because so many entrepreneurs, and I didn't do it in the early days, asked for help, not because I felt I had all the answers. It wasn't ego fueled with me, but it was more of, I don't know who to ask, or I don't want to inconvenience someone, or maybe I should just try to do this all on my own. So that is so important. Reach out to the Eliases and the Lauras of the world, with Small Business BC, with EDC, Trade Commissioner Service, Startup Canada also, and we do a Startup Vancouver. There are so many people out there that want to help you. And you've done that, which is help propel you forward. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
No, thank you. And
Global Startup School.
Sorry, and Global Startup School. Sorry. Yeah, absolutely.
definitely good. Yeah.
Whoops.
Hey, Mark, can I ask you a quick question as well?
Yeah, of course.
Eli. So one of the things that we see a lot is, companies that are looking to start selling to companies, and they want to drop ship and they want to do things like that. I think a lot of them don't take the time to do the right due diligence on the suppliers, especially in China, for example. And so from your perspective, how did you land on that supplier, and what kind of due diligence did you do to be comfortable with them?
Yeah, really good question. Normally in an ideal world, we would have gone to a trade show, we would have seen products, that we would have talked to suppliers, we would have started to build up. It's regardless of, as a marketer, regardless of what it is that you're doing, those relationships I think are pretty core to finding the right people to work with, and a little bit of FaceTime would have helped. So in absence of FaceTime, in absence of being able to see the products, we really did rely on technology, and that was, multiple video calls. Really, those factory tours were invaluable. We looked for third-party accreditation. We asked suppliers who they were supplying to, and we reached out and said, "Oh, hey." For example, the supplier that we chose works with a brand based in Japan, and so we reached out and we tried to, find out more information about that relationship. So really just kind of, I guess, vetting, coming up with a list of criteria, and then vetting the suppliers as best we could, based on what we could discover. So I think just having a good set of criteria really brought us down the right path, and still being a little bit cautious with it. We could have placed an order for 100 units, but we've got our one on the way that we're going to use as our prototype for photos and for pre-orders before we place our big order.
Mark, I wanted to ask you a question at that same order of ideas. I've had a lot of clients who've had issues with their suppliers in China. So they before they would go visit, and then they would have working on the prototype or their products. And I had a lot of clients who lost some money and lost some valuable time when they designed their product, because at the end of the day, the Chinese supplier manufacturer said, we're not doing this. You're asking too much of us. That's not included here. We're not doing this. So I have clients who've lost a lot of money and time getting their product to the market, even if they were manufacturing, part of it was manufactured there. So what about having contracts with you? So if you were thinking about getting a good lawyer, hiring a good lawyer that will understand about international matters, was this something that you looked at, and is it something that you feel has protected you on moving forward with the suppliers?
Yeah, really good question, Laura. You know what? Now that you say that, we have not gotten to that point yet. We ordered our one-off unit. Before we place that big order, then we're going to need to speak with someone that can, cross the T's, dot the I's in terms of the contract and the agreement. We have a pretty good sense, I feel like, in terms of alignment on our expectations and what they will deliver. But to manifest that in a way that is going to be legally binding, and we're going to get the product that we ultimately think we're going to be getting, we will need to do that due diligence for sure.
Yeah, just to mention, to enforce the law worldwide, it's quite hard. Sometimes it's not worth it because of the amount of money that you are handling. Depends on, but we can have this discussion like afterwards. Like, just a quick question here from Jairo Henrique Caicedo. So Laura, it's for you. How much of the percentage product or service has to be made in Canada to be considered as Canadian brand?
Well,
it could be like Apple design in Vancouver. How much value has to be added on Vancouver?
So
lands?
they say about 98% of the product has to be Canadian design. Of the cost of the product has to be Canadian. Now, if not, you can use, if it's more than 50%, that will be product of Canada. The other one uses will be made in Canada. So there are two names that you can use. Now, I've heard, because sometimes if the design is Canadian, you can use it, but there's nothing that will guarantee more than, Canadian design. You can use that because that is not really regulated by the Competition Bureau. There are these two regulations, product of Canada and made in Canada. So that's where the value comes, and when people are using the value. Then you can check everything in the competitionbureau.org. I think that they have that information, but it's 98% or 50%. And that includes design, and I know that in some situations you can negotiate with the Competition Bureau on certain things, because there's certain things that we don't have here in Canada. So, and the point of design, but usually it's 98% of all the costs. So it's quite tricky to use that one. But then if you go for the product of Canada, if not, you can use the made in Canada for the 50%. So
Great, great, very interesting to know that we have two ways to talk about.
And that,
products.
and usually what that also calls for higher pricing, because Canadian products are very well considered abroad. So that's an extra value. So if you can use that, it will be great as well.
Great. Last question to Mark Huvenars, and we are almost at 6 p.m. It was nice to see you guys here, but let's see Mark Huvenars before we end the section here. So, Mark, how long did you take to vet the suppliers? What was the most challenging part, and how did you like Alibaba for sourcing? Miriam Dong.
Yeah, Miriam, good question. So it took us about 3.5 months, 4 months to ultimately, when we sat down and said we need to define our supplier, and it was fueled by COVID. We wanted to get our product into market right now, just because more people are traveling locally. So we accelerated that. I wouldn't say we accelerated it. We gave it the time that we needed to give it to feel comfortable with the decisions that we were making. And that was about 4 months. And the most challenging part, it was ultimately selecting a supplier and placing the order. Alibaba was, it was good in terms of starting conversations, not necessarily aligning what we wanted to do with the products that already existed on Alibaba. So there was a bit of a disconnect there, but in terms of starting the conversation, it was a great platform for us.